welcome to our second edition of This Is BS, the ISO. I have a fantastic guest today, a legend of the recruitment industry and a legend of video recruitment as well, someone who's pioneered it in the last few years, especially in the time I've been with video my job. Our guest today, the one and only Mark Smith. Mark, how are we doing today?
G'day Ben, I'm very well, and look, I'm dressed like it's 1985 in my suit here and tie. I think I'm the only bloke in Sydney wearing a tie, but it's my uniform. So maybe first thing that people are probably going to say, well, you know, he's wearing a suit. That's bullshit. We've got to get past that pretty quickly, I think.
I'm sorry, but you're in the office, right? So it's kind of like you're trying to keep sort of our idea of being in the office with the suit and tie. I wear a t-shirt. And
you're at home and you're in a t-shirt. There you go. How does that work?
Like, to be fair though as well, you've got a much nicer background than mine, which is basically Crash Bandicoot and desk, which is fine. So yours is far nice with the Mandela thing background.
Yeah, well, let me read what Mr. Mandela says, because I think it's really important, even in these times actually. It says, never give up. There's no such thing as an ending, just a new beginning, which I think is really appropriate given the circumstances that we're all in at the moment, for sure.
Well, I find that that's actually a really great way to start this off, actually, is looking at these troubled times and focusing on that. So with everything that's happening, before we get into the BS's, you know, we're obviously in a crazy level of time now where, you know, we talked off camera before about, you know, the global financial crisis and leading through some stuff. So the business that you've got, People2people and stuff like that, why don't you give us a bit of background on People2people and your experience, and then also kind of what you're doing now during these times to kind of combat the crazy pandemic that we're in at the moment?
Yeah, sure. So P2P started in 2005, February 2nd, 2005. So we had our 15th birthday at the beginning of this year. So we're a middle market white collar recruiter. So we've got offices throughout Australia and New Zealand. We've got 8 offices. And our turnover prior to the recession was about that sort of 110, 120 million sort of mark. Obviously, we've had a significant decline since then. So what are we doing right now? Well, we're maintaining our activity. We're initiating conversations with people is essentially what we're doing. There's the number of vacancies that are being listed with us right now is substantially down on where it would normally be. But this is the third time I've lived through a downturn as a manager in a recruitment agency. Each one is different. Each one has its own particular flavour, I suppose you'd say. This one has the health aspect. The GFC had the global financial element to it. The tech wreck was just was something completely different again. So those are the 3 downturns. So look, the one thing I can tell you about this one is that it will end and we'll get to the other side, and you just need to work your way through it. I suppose we'll talk a little bit about that. One of my BS moments, I think, is the way some people are actually dealing with this, but we'll get to that, I suppose, in a second. I think, look, what the main reason is that having lived through a couple of these downturns, is that if you, and let me just bring it straight out here. I'll read out what my first BS thing is here, is that waiting for the old days to come back, that's bullshit. Those people who are sitting there in their office right now, sitting at their desk, whether it be at home or in their office, as a recruiter going, right, well, I'm just going to wait this out. I'm going to wait for the old days to come back again. Then you are in for a very rude shock. It is never coming back. It's not going to be the same way it was before. And each time we go through one of these downturns, there's always some sort of innovation and change that comes through. So, and we're already getting the sense of that as we're having this conversation in a Zoom meeting right now. It's just the beginning of what will be a huge change and sort of brought it all forward. It was interesting. I was chatting to one of our managers in New Zealand, and she was chatting to the HRD of a large multinational in Auckland, and they had a 3-year change management plan which they've brought a change management plan that was meant to be implemented over 3 years. It's now being brought forward completely and going to be implemented in the second half of this year. That is demonstrative of what's going to happen. There's going to be change everywhere, and you can't be frightened of it. I think there's a feeling that you get. Like there's that when you're frightened, you're scared, that churn in your stomach, etc. And if you talk to a sportsman, an elite athlete, they'll talk to you about that excitement that they feel before they go on to play the grand final, that energy that they're going to harness before they run out onto that field. Well, that energy, that feeling, that churn is what other people would describe as fear. I'm frightened. That feeling they associate with fear, whereas the association should be more about anticipation and excitement. So I know I'm getting a little bit lost here, but anticipating the change, being excited about the circumstances that we're in now, that's where I'm at right now. But believe me, financially, this is devastating, but I'm actually quite excited and anticipating the change that's going to come after this particular downturn. So
look, I'd actually like to dive into one of the key points you raised regarding the old days. Now, the thing that I find fascinating about this whole downturn and stuff like that is people being so excited, or like people who like say, we want to get back to the old times. And a lot of people, the old times were working a 9-to-5 job, working a lot of the time, focusing heavily on their work rather than sort of looking at that life balance. So I totally get that.
Wearing a blue shirt, yellow tie, that sort of thing.
So what I'd like to kind of question you on is what do you think deems old days in this context? What exactly are we looking at when it says going back to the old days? What are we losing in that sense?
2019, that's the old days.
Yep.
Yeah, living those moments like I'm not talking about 20 years ago. I'm talking about 6 months ago. The circumstances of which we did business 6 months ago are gone. The top of the market was 2018. I've been in the recruitment industry since 1994, and I reckon 2018 is a top 3 year as to the financial rewards and the amount of business that was going through. It was a sensational year, and those days are well and truly past us. So that's what I mean about the old days. It's just about the way we go about doing business. So that's not just about working from home, because, by the way, that's another one of my bullshit.
We'll get to that one a little later on. Circumstances have changed, and it's going from the 2019, start 2019 to where we are now at 2020, sort of everything that's going on there. In the recruitment industry specifically, what circumstances do you think have changed the most?
Well, the biggest, there's a few things. I'll focus on the biggest, for the recruitment industry, the thing that is different about this particular downturn, and that is the hesitancy that exists in candidate behaviour. So it's a supply side as well as a demand issue. So in the GFC, in the tech wreck, there was a drop in demand. So people just weren't looking to hire anybody anymore. And the speed at which that decline happened was over a period of months. But on the supply side, there were candidates who were always keen to go about, to take on new opportunities, to expand their career. So there wasn't a hesitancy on the candidate side. Yeah. What's different this time round is that not only has demand collapsed, but there is a hesitancy on the supply side, on the candidate side, so that they are reluctant to explore new opportunities or to take a risk because of the uncertainty that exists. And that uncertainty is both financial, but also from a health perspective. It's that health element that's really throwing a spanner in the works. We had somebody who didn't turn up went to a temp job for one day and then said, no, I can't go anymore. It's a public transport thing. I'm not going to do that. Now, if that was the GFC, they would have been delighted to have the job in the first place. Now, what's happening is you've got the health issues and the other uncertainty, which is trumping. So the fact that there's a job there for them. So that dichotomy is the biggest change on this one. And I'll just wrap up there to give it a real, because I'm a statistics guy and a former accountant. That's why I'm wearing a suit. I'm indoctrinated. That's where I am.
Yes.
I can't break that mold. Is the unemployment numbers that were released last week. 594,000 people were lost their job, but only 100 and something thousand actually went onto the unemployment queue. Why is there that difference? The difference is that when they ask the surveys, they say, are you looking for work? Then that 400,000 people said, no, I'm not. That is the supply issue, the candidate hesitancy writ large in statistics. So you sit there and go, right, you might be battling hard as a recruiter to finally you get a job on.